Welcome to St. Louis and welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thank you so much.
I'm kind of a super fan to you and your sister. I've loved both of you from afar, and I've loved all of your work. And she kept her illness quiet up until the very end. And you write about this in this book, Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog. She didn't want to make a big stink. Why did she keep it secret?
Oh, gosh, there are a lot of reasons why. Of course, she was famous, very famous, and if you were famous and you say that you're sick, it becomes the story. It becomes what your life is about. And I think every time you leave the house, someone will say to you, "Oh, I hope you're feeling all right," or "Oh, my brother is sick," or "My mother was sick," and I think for her, she didn't want that to be what her life was about. She really wanted her life to go on as much as possible, not only because you can't even really tell close friends if you're famous. It's too the urge to tell is too great.
Right.
To tell one more person, and then the next thing you know, it's driving the train in a way. And I think she just wanted to live the life she wanted to live on her own terms.
Yeah. You write in your book, Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog, now out in paperback, that you talk about this. And when my father died, I talked about it as well. You have complete strangers coming up to you, consoling you. You can't quite figure out how you feel, and yet you find yourself consoling strangers about your sadness.
It was this when I started to write about this, I'd really tried to write about everything that was going on because some things were so unexpected. There I was, I could barely, walk down the street I was in such a daze. I felt like all the street signs were missing in my emotional life, that losing Nora was so powerful to me. And yet people would come up and say, "Oh, I lost my brother," or "I lost my sister," because they all knew about it. And then I'm saying to them, "Well, oh my God, that's so sad." And then all this sadness is coming at you from other people, and you don't know what to do with it. Or else somebody's coming up to you at the 3 minutes of the day that maybe you were actually not thinking about it.
Right.
And then you are again. And it's such a natural thing to want to console and to want to connect. But I understand it completely, and yet I didn't expect it because I didn't understand that when somebody is famous that way and means so much to other people, that they then they have a connection to you. And
Yeah.
I didn't. So I actually began to think about Caroline Kennedy and how she lost her daddy, and then everybody's telling her that, oh, they feel so sad because they lost a president. It was so. I thought, oh my gosh, this is so weird that I'm even thinking of myself and Caroline in the same sentence.
There's got to be a word that you can say to somebody that says, "Hey, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm thinking about you, but I don't want to bother you." Right? There's got to be a word, like just somebody has to invent a word that says, "Della, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. I feel bad for you. I'll talk to you later." Right?
It's a strange thing because I did appreciate that she meant so much to so many people, and how could she not? I think she just enriched everyone's lives. But it's just hard to juggle your personal grief and the public grief.
The book is called Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog. Delia Ephron, our guest. Explain to me how falling in love with a film made you fall in love with the wrong man.
Well, of course, I grew up in this family where my mother wanted us all to be writers, as did my father, and in fact, all four sisters did become writers. But at the same time that my mother is sending me along this path in every possible way, I go to this movie when I'm 10 called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, and ever after, all I want to do is marry a wild man, move to the backwoods, and make flapjacks for him. And so, of course, when I got out of college, and of course I was terrified to take on the writing thing anyway, because by this time my parents were not only successful screenwriters, but my sister was already a successful writer. I married the first man who asked me and moved to not quite the backwoods, Providence, Rhode Island, but it felt like it. And there I was, and it took me, it's the strangest thing about your 20s. I mean, you sort of think in your 20s you're just going to be around forever, and then the end of your 20s comes and you think, boy, if I don't start living the life I am meant to live, it's not going to happen. And it sort of struck me at about 28 that, oh my gosh, I was throwing my life away. I hadn't figured anything out. And at that point, I realized I knew I had to try and be a writer.
Yeah.
And
as
I had just lost my job because I had this really mean boss. And one day I just stood up and said, I quit. And he shouted, "You're flat-chested." And
it's a comeback.
It's one of my favorite things that ever happened to me in my whole life because I just love to tell it. But and unfortunately, I didn't have a comeback, which I was really good with a comeback. I've always been good my whole life with a comeback, but I didn't have one then. Anyway, so I was unemployed, so it was a perfect time to become a writer.
The book is Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog. Delia Ephron, our guest. So much to ask you about. You say in the book that you can't write about your mother.
Yeah, that was the hardest one. First of all, I want to say one of the odd things about parenting, I mean, there were 4 sisters, and I think we all had different parents. I think you're born into a family at a different time and that you relate differently you're born into the marriage at a different time.
Right.
Your parents relate differently, and in some sense we are only children. And so when I write about these things, I'm really just writing what it was for me. But when I was 11, my mother became an alcoholic, and a very scary one. I mean, she was very normal in the days, and then at night she simply went to pieces, and it was very scary. And she said to me when I was hanging out in the house one day, a teenager, she said, "I hope you never tell anyone what happens here. And, keep the secrets," which is what the children of alcoholics do. And I've really grown to feel that you should tell everyone. You may never get past it otherwise. And I hadn't ever really written about my mother, and a book is a journey, and it started with my sister, and I knew it was going to find its way to my mother eventually. And when I had to really figure out, who she was, and in some ways I still, the mysteries of her are the thing I tried to get at, and why that happened, and what it meant. And what it meant to me, how it transformed me to be her child.
It's really interesting. Coming from a large family myself, I know exactly what you're talking about. The older sisters had a different relationship, a different time than the younger ones. It's really, really spot on. I only got a short time, Delia. I want to ask you about You've Got Mail that you wrote with your sister. I went back and watched that recently, and it's almost comical in that it's a love story about 2 people who fall in love online, which came to be much more normal today than it was when you wrote it. But it's also a story about bookstores and how now in the 21st century, the only bookstores left are the small independent bookstores, and all the big bookstores are going out of business.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, when we wrote that movie, the big bookstores, that was the story, the big bookstores, Barnes & Noble, they were putting the little independents out of business. And now they're in danger, it's in danger, and the independents are making a comeback. It's just, isn't that amazing? But of course, Amazon did not dominate then either. There was no Amazon.
Right.
The book business has changed.
Yeah, and all right. I mean, there's something very special about. You could clearly tell that the 2 of you loved the independent small bookstore. You sort of.
Yeah, we did, and also Meg Ryan's bookstore is a children's bookstore, and that was one thing our mother really did give us great books to read when we were children, and we loved children's books.
Yeah. So, Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog. That's the book. Do you have any movies in the works? Any plans for any scripts coming down the line?
Oh, guys, just working on a pilot actually, but I don't know. I'm really, my main concentration right now is a novel, and novels are so hard. They are just so hard.
Why are they so hard?
You have to know everything. You have to figure everything out, and then they have to be literary. I mean, they can't just be. I mean, well, it's so hard to explain, but in the end, a movie isn't a script. It's it's based on a script, but the script is only a part of it. And a book that's everything. The book is the thing you hold in your lap and read. And a novel has to be so rich.
I want to know why Hollywood will not allow authors to write their own screenplays to their books.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that is the thing. You don't own the copyright. I mean, they pay. Well, first of all, they pay you a lot. Well, not necessarily. They can pay you quite a little, and they still own it outright. It's one of the things that writers spend their lives being miserable about. I mean, they're living the good life. They're getting to write screenplays. The reason I write books is I need to tell my stories my way, and I need nobody to tell me that I can or I can't do it that way. And if you're in Hollywood, that's the bargain you make, and sometimes it works and sometimes
but nobody
breaks your heart.
Nobody knows your work better than you do, and so they bring in somebody who doesn't know that, doesn't live it, hasn't smelt it, hasn't just marinated in it, and all of a sudden they change it, and the people who love the book goes watch the movie, and you're like, you missed the whole point of it.
I know. I mean, I wrote a long chapter about collaboration, about when you can collaborate and when you can, and what the movie business does to the writer. Because I think at some point in a writer's life, you say to yourself, I either can be angry or I'm going to direct, and because they're not going to fire the directors. Or for me, it was I'm either can be angry or I can write novels, because that's the bargain the screenwriter makes.
Yeah. The book is called Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog. Delia Ephron, Nora Ephron's sister, but she's also accomplished in and of her own right. She wrote Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. You wrote You've Got Mail with Nora. You also wrote a whole bunch of nonfiction, humor, all that type of stuff. The book is Sister, Mother, Husband, Dog. Delia, thank you very much. Best of luck. And if I had a word that meant sorry you lost your sister, have a good day, I would say it. Otherwise, have a good day.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Best of luck to you. Thank you very much. 9:24 here, Big 550.